This video will be a general discussion on the concept of being. I'll be coming out with a video on Sartre's Being and Nothingness, Part 2, Chapter 1, The Immediate Structures of the For Itself, shortly. It is a difficult chapter, and I'm creating this video to help reinforce the concept of being before getting too deep into the For Itself. So being is such a simple concept that it is actually hard to pin down sometimes. It's a little bit too obvious. When Sartre says being is what it is, we are left with this seemingly empty definition. In fact, Hegel recognized this absolute encompassing of everything to also support the concept of nothingness, because it is so open that it is empty for Hegel. Now, generally speaking, being is what it is. Anything that is. Whether it is an object, a thought, a person, or a planet, anything and everything is encompassed in the concept of being. Isness is the common factor of everything. It excludes nothing, and it is therefore limitless. Now, when Sartre refers to being in itself, the in itself part becomes a localization of being. I could say that a rock has being in itself. I could say that a hammer has being in itself, meaning that its existence unites it with everything else that exists. I'm identifying it by what it shares with everything else, simply because it is. Now, the For Itself, or consciousness, is understood in relation to being in itself, and the only way in which it can be differentiated from being in itself is if it is a nothingness, because being in itself has an absolute density. Nothing can slip into it. Only nothingness can slip into it. This is why the For Itself, consciousness, is for Sartre a nothingness. Human reality itself is a nothingness. What do I mean? Take a hammer, for example. To understand the hammer as a hammer is to understand it within the instrumental complex of human reality. To say that it is a hammer is to find its essence through its use in human reality. The object that is a hammer could also be a paperweight. It could also be a weapon. And these names we use to identify an object like a hammer are ultimately estranged from being in itself. We are always coming up empty, no matter how we choose to identify the object. The very act of separating the object from the continuity of being, the all-encompassing, seamless continuity of being, is to identify a nothingness. Now, there are other conceptions of being, other ontologies. For example, with non-dualism, being is consciousness. The one reality is consciousness. This could be referred to as consciousness-only ontology, a kind of idealism. But even here, the word being is referring to the absolute inclusion of everything that exists as one and as continuous. In a religious context, a concept like being may be described as God's presence, and since it is present in everything and is reduced to the most fundamental of properties, it allows for the quality of omniscience to be associated with it. Now, Sartre is an atheist. Being in itself for Sartre is nothing other than the cold fact of existence, totally in the dark outside of consciousness, nothing but a matter of fact. It is only the nothingness of the For Itself that can be slipped into this absolute density of existence. So I hope that doesn't confuse anyone. I just thought I'd give an alternative way of conceiving of the concept of being, just so we could have a better notion of what is called to our attention when that word is used by Sartre. I'll be posting a longer video on the immediate structures of the For Itself shortly. It may seem a little bit redundant after watching this, but it will elaborate much further on being in itself and the For Itself. So I hope you found that useful. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. You could also find links to my Patreon account, which I just launched, and my Big Cartel page, where you could view and buy my paintings. Links will be in the description. See you next time.